Hey, this is Brian Webb. I serve as the Area Director for Pacific Oceania with the Assemblies of God World Missions. The Pacific has been my home for 24 years. I find its sparkling blue water, soaring, jungle-cloaked mountains, roaring volcanoes, and brilliantly white beaches to be mesmerizing. And while the scenery is amazing, the friendships that my family and I have developed, that's the very best part of living in the Pacific. Moving far from home, we found surrogate family ready and willing to take us in, teach us how to live in their context, and partner with us in the work of the kingdom. I would love for you to have a similar experience. And maybe the question in your mind is, well, how would I actually serve? What would I do? That's going to look different for every missionary. I can give you some broad strokes. In the Pacific, we believe in team, and we want teams with some key components: evangelism and church planting, pastoral development, community development, next-gen ministry, and children's ministry. Today, let's talk about children's ministry. When Renee and I first went to Vanuatu, we moved into the village of Shapi. Shapi is a boarding school village right outside of Luganville. There are 3 schools there and hundreds of kids who either live in a boarding school or with relatives close to the schools. Every day, when school would let out, swarms of kids would move up and down our road, aggravating our dogs, throwing rocks at our fence, and generally driving us crazy. And one day, I determined to turn a challenge into an opportunity. So I built a simple puppet stage, bought a few puppets, had a friend paint a sign announcing that there would be a Bible club at our house every Thursday afternoon. Renee and I prepared a shaded area that would accommodate 2 or 3 dozen kids, and we stocked up on snacks and juice in preparation for our first Bible club. That Thursday, when I opened my gate, 120 kids streamed into my yard. Each week the crowd grew. Ultimately, we would top out at more than 400 kids. Nothing fancy. Juice, few snacks, few songs, Bible story with puppets, but the results were amazing. Kids accepted Christ and began to grow in their knowledge of Him. We began to bring in local pastors and children's ministers, training them and allowing them to assume more and more of the ministry. Once they felt comfortable, we would find a location in a neighboring village and we would set them up in their own Bible club. Soon there were Bible clubs every day of the week and thousands of kids being ministered to each week. Churches were started as a result of children's Bible clubs. I should say straight up that children's ministry is not my gifting. I don't have a lot of creativity for fun ideas. I'm not one of those people that kids gravitate towards. I sometimes find a hard time explaining things in a kid-friendly way. But we were willing, and that's all it took. What we did could be replicated and improved on across the Pacific. I mean, look at what God did through a couple that frankly are not gifted in children's ministry. What if you, who are insanely gifted in connecting with children, poured your life into the kids of a Pacific nation? The results could be phenomenal. To me, this seems so natural. Win kids to Jesus, train and equip local believers to do the same, repeat. I mean, I became a believer when I was just a child, and the odds are you did too. Millions of children across the Pacific are waiting for the same opportunity. If you feel God tugging on your heart to serve in children's ministry in the Pacific, send me a message. I would love to talk with you about opportunity for children's ministry in the Pacific. I would love to talk with you about how you could serve as a missionary in the Pacific.